Welcome to the Common Man Football Show. My name is James Coburn, and today's episode, we're talking about 2018 NFL Draft defensive safety production highlights. And this is going to be a very interesting show because we're going to be getting into safeties. And the safety position is a very complex system when it comes to data. It boils down to two types of safeties, really. You have the strong safety type, which the classic version of that is like a Cam Chancellor, Troy Polamalu, Sean Taylor is like the uber athletic, crazy, ridiculous, insane version, like the Calvin Johnson of safeties. That's Sean Taylor, in terms of that. And those types of safeties produce in a much different way than a free safety. So there's some nuances when it comes to safety data that I think I'm not going to get too much into in this video, but I do want to just make that clear that depending on the type of position that you're talking about, there's going to be some nuances. There's going to be some differences between those positions because of the nature of those positions. And one example of that is with strong safeties I just talked about. Strong safeties typically have much higher thresholds for solo tackle data, meaning that a lot of times high-quality strong safeties need to score much higher in solo tackle data than free safeties do. And the typical reason for this is because strong safeties oftentimes are closer to the line of scrimmage. They have more opportunities to make plays in the ball. And because they have more opportunities to make plays in the ball, they tend to produce more. And on top of that, the high-quality versions typically produce even higher than what you would expect from, say, a free safety type. Where free safety types, typically speaking, they definitely can hang out around the line of scrimmage every once in a while, don't get me wrong, but guys like Ed Reed, guys like Earl Thomas, those types of guys, when they were in college, they were more producing like a guy who was back deep and producing from that kind of perspective. So they weren't close to the line of scrimmage, acting like an extra linebacker. They were deep, making plays in the ball, getting interceptions, that sort of stuff. They still tackled. There is a threshold for tackling when it comes to free safety types, but it's a lot lower than the strong safety types, if that makes any sense. On top of that, strong safety types don't normally have to produce as much when it comes to interceptions or pass deflections because they normally don't get as many opportunities as the free safety types do to be in coverage and do things from that kind of perspective. Or at least their responsibilities are more spread out to other things than just that, based on data. So getting into this, if you're new to the channel and you don't have any idea what I'm talking about, let me just get out the terms and definitions first. The first term when it comes to production data that you should be familiar with is solo tackle market share. Now, solo tackle market share essentially is you take individual solo tackles divided by team total solo tackles. So you basically say a safety has 50 solo tackles on a team that has 500 solo tackles, then that safety has 10% solo tackle market share. Pretty easy to understand. That's the main concept of market share. And you can apply it to interception market share. Same concept. Individual interceptions divided by team total interceptions. So if a safety has 2 interceptions on a team that has 8 interceptions total, that safety has 25% interception market share. And then finally, you have pass deflection market share, where you take individual pass deflections divided by team total pass deflections. Same concept, same example. I don't want to give another example, but I think you get the point, when it comes to this. So that's basically how market share is done. Now, why is market share done? Because you're trying to figure out how much of a contributor this guy was on that defense. You're trying to figure out how much of a boss this guy is. Because the high-end producing guys, Troy Polamalu, Ed Reed, all those guys, depending on the type of position they had, produced at an extremely high level when it comes to market share data. Guys like Ed Reed, for example, had elite interception market share, elite pass deflection market share, compared to thousands of safeties over the last 20 years. Guys like Troy Polamalu had elite solo tackle data, where he was scoring in the high 90-plus percentile of solo tackle, meaning out of every single safety, thousands of strong safeties, he was in the highest of the high when it comes to solo tackle market share. Like, there's nobody who compares to him because of how high his solo tackle market share is. So, you know, the reason why market share matters is because you need to figure out how big of a contributor this guy is on this defense. You know, and if a guy is not a major contributor on the defense, if he's just kind of an contributor on the defense and he's not producing like an elite player, why would you value that player like an elite player? Because if you look at all the elite safeties, all the high quality safeties, and all the high quality safeties produced at a certain level, you know, they all have differences in terms of specific things, but they all produced at a certain level. They produced in a certain manner. And you're going to tell me that so-and-so safety is going to be the next whatever when he didn't produce like them. That's where you have a disconnect. That's why market share matters. That's why you need to pay attention to market share, because you're going to have players who produce in a certain way that is not indicative of a high-quality player. And you just have to kind of deal with it from that kind of perspective. Now, when you get into the actual players that to highlight this week. So I'm going to give you two lists. One list is going to have all the safeties who passed pretty much every threshold for the most part. Again, I haven't done percentile scores yet to get more specific with this. But this is just the general solo tackle data and who stuck out the most. So I'm going to give you first the players who hit almost pretty much all the data points they needed to hit, all the sort of thresholds, if you will. And then I'm going to give you another list that has a bunch of safeties on it as well who hit at least two of these thresholds but missed out on a couple other ones. And the reason I'm giving you this other list is because there are some safeties who are outliers, if you will, that, for example, didn't quite hit every single threshold, but did hit at least two of them, and were able to kind of parlay that into success. So these are guys who have a very high likelihood of potentially becoming a starter to an outlier in terms of like a high quality safety, is essentially what I'm getting at when it comes to this. So first off, let's start with the guys who hit pretty much every single data point. Looking at this, there were 7 names in the 2017 FBS season who hit that mark. These are all the names right here. You have Darnell Savage from Maryland, Deshaun Elliott from Texas, Travarius Moore from Southern Miss, Lucas Dennis from Boston College, Jeremy Reeves from South Alabama, Mike Edwards from Kentucky, and Justin Reed from Stanford. So these are all the draft eligible safeties who hit certain production marks indicative of a potential high quality NFL safety. So that's basically what this means. Does it mean that all these guys are going to become elite safeties? We don't know yet because we have other variables that we need to get to. For example, the film. Are they actually good players on film? The athleticism data. Are they athletic? Do they hit the minimum thresholds for being an elite safety? All these things have to factor into things. But at the very least, when it comes to production, they pass that filter, that threshold, indicative of a high-quality player. And then we get to the list of safeties who didn't hit every single mark, but were close. You know, they were close enough to where there might be some potential that they could be like an outlier or someone that, you know, could end up being, you know, a good, like a starter to that kind of perspective. So these are all the safeties that did this. A much bigger list, of course, because oftentimes when you lower your standards, it doesn't help pinpoint things. But these are all the safeties that pretty much hit all of the marks they needed to hit in certain areas, but didn't hit all the marks in other areas. Main names to point out, I suppose. These are just guys that I've watched on film and I actually liked. Derwin James, of course, is on this list from Florida State. I think he ultimately will end up being able to pass every single metric because I think he did pretty well in the interception market share last year or the year before that. But he's another guy that I definitely think might end up being better once I do final data analysis on him. Mark McLaurin from Mississippi State, another guy that I've seen on film I actually like a good deal. Minka Fitzpatrick from Alabama, another guy that I think once I actually add in all the data and all like a more comprehensive view of Minka Fitzpatrick, I think will come out with him being on top more. Armani Watts from Texas A&M, another pretty decent safety, and I think there's other guys like Quinn Blanding and stuff like that as well for the most part. But I would use this list as these are basically safeties that hit some pretty good production marks and are at least worth your time, you know. So if you can't watch every single safety, which you can't, if you can't watch every single senior safety, I mean, you can, but it's very tedious. It's a very long process. Instead of doing that, you can just watch the safeties who hit the production marks indicative of a potentially good player and go from there. So again, essentially, these are all the safeties that hit some pretty decent production marks, but didn't really hit all the production marks, but could still end up being fairly decent overall. And of course, my name is James Coburn. You can find my other work at draftcoburn.wordpress.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at Geometrics. And if you like this content and you want more content like this, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Share this video as well with anybody that you know. Hit that notification button to let you know when another video of mine drops. And as far as videos for the future, it's going to be crazy, guys. We're going to have the last week of NFL game matchups, or at least for the regular season. And then I'm going to be doing a lot of post-season NFL analytic grades, looking more towards the draft, individual player profiles, free agency profiles. It's going to be nuts. So if you're not subscribed to the channel and you want NFL content, you want free agency content, you want draft content, and content that is different from what everybody else is giving you out there. I'm giving you information, I'm giving you data, I'm giving you analytics, I'm giving you stuff that nobody else is giving you. If you want that, Daddy provides. Okay? Daddy provides. So be sure, again, to subscribe, hit that notification button, and I will talk to you guys in the next video. Peace.